Hi, I'm Dr. Abigail Boucher, and I am here as part of the English at Aston How-To series to talk to you about how to find reliable sources for your academic work. And this is targeted more toward English literature students, so this advice might be different for English language or for your other joint honors subjects. So the first thing that you need to know is that the reliability of your sources is very important when it comes to academic work. You can't use just any old thing that you find. You need to find sources that have been properly published, and the reason for that is they've been through something called peer review, which means that when I write something and send it to a journal, um, they send it out to other academics to double check that I know what I'm talking about, and that's how these sort of things get verified and become reliable. Um, so the easiest way to do that is to try to focus on things that you find through our library and the library databases like JSTOR or Project Muse. And, typically just things that are published is always a good rule of thumb. So if you can't find a publisher for something, then the source is probably unreliable. And that's really easy to do. So something like a book, you have the title page here, and then if you flip beyond the title page, they have this little page with all these sort of information that includes the publisher, the year published, where the publisher is located, things like that make it pretty easy to find. And the thing that you should be really careful about is anything you find online, because there's a tendency for sometimes blogs or random people's websites, they can actually look pretty professional. So the publisher here is really key. So examples of good academic sources, obviously library books or anything that's properly published that you could buy in a bookstore, academic journals, so again, things that you would find through JSTOR or through the library search. Newspaper articles generally are fine as long as they're, sort of more mainstream newspapers, not tabloids or things like that. Again, if you have a book that is a sort of like an Oxford World's Classics or some sort of critical edition of a book, they'll usually come with an introduction at the beginning, and that's something that is usually academically written as well. That would be acceptable for you to use. Obviously, things any reference works like encyclopedias and published reports and studies. Documentaries as well, potentially, but those you might have to be a little careful with. And one of the easiest ways, if you don't really know where to start, and the library's not turning anything up, and JSTOR's not turning anything up, Google Books is often quite helpful. Or there's a website called Google Scholar that refines your searches more in sort of academic terms, so you won't get whatever the most popular hit is, you get whatever the most popular academic hit is. And those are just really great starting places. I use them all the time in my own work. So some examples of bad academic sources. These are things that we will mark you up on, and you will lose points for this. So anything without a publisher, things like Spark Notes or Cliff Notes or anything that are sort of student guides to help summarize the text. That's not academic. That's there just to summarize the plot and to give you some broad pointers about what themes are used in the text. But in in higher education, you are actually sort of beyond that point. That might be acceptable in secondary school, but not here. Wikipedia is generally not a reliable source. I will mark you off for that. But Wikipedia is trying to become more reliable, so they've started adding citations. So there's a little footnote symbol or an endnote symbol in there. Go to that original source and see what that says. So don't say Wikipedia. Go to the actual study or article that they are citing and find that and use that original source, because that is very likely more academic. Goodreads is something that you cannot use, at least for me. You can use it potentially in some English literature or English language assignments, but that's only if you're very, very specifically using something like reader response theory. So anything you will be doing with me in my modules, that is never acceptable, because it's a random person on the internet saying, I thought this book was great, or I thought this book was terrible. I don't know who that person is. They're not peer reviewed. They're not properly published. So that's not a reliable source as far as I'm concerned in the assignments that I will give you. Anyone's sort of random blog, again, I could write a blog on any old thing and put it up online. It does not make me an expert in it, so try to stick to people who are experts and have some sort of track record behind this, by which I mean they're published. The one weird one you guys might find weird is that you can't actually use my lectures or our seminars together. You cannot cite those because again, they're not published. They're not verifiable in that sort of way. They have not been through peer review. So theoretically, and this is what people find maybe a little intimidating sometimes, is that your lecturers could say anything, and there's nobody there to stop us. We could go mad with power with it. There's no way to verify. So just avoid that. It tends to be background context. Go to the actual critics that I cite that have page numbers I can point you to in my lecture rather than just repeating what I'm saying. Generally, TV shows that are sort of anything other than documentaries, be really careful with, and just anything that I can't easily verify. So I think that's a pretty all-encompassing list of bad academic sources. But the main thing is, we would not expect you guys to know this. It takes a while to get a feel for what's reliable and what isn't. So just ask us. Your lecturers would be very happy to, get an email from you saying, I'm not really sure about this. I want to make sure I'm doing this right. We can look it over for you if you just email us the source and explain why something isn't reliable. So if there are any questions or you want to check if the source is reliable, please email me.